High Counselor Zextal of the Galactic Concordat stood before the emergency session, his crystalline form vibrating with barely contained fear. The massive chamber, usually filled with the dignified murmurs of 1,000 species representatives, was deadly silent. "The humans," he began, his translator struggling to maintain composure, "have declared total war." The chamber erupted. Representatives from 300 worlds shouted questions and demands, while others simply fled. They all knew why. The incident, the mistake, the unforgivable error that would cost them everything. 6 standard months ago, the Council's Science Division had captured a human vessel that had strayed into restricted space. Standard procedure called for memory wipes and return vessels. But Chief Researcher Val Shera had been fascinated by humans' unique neurological structure, particularly their young. She had kept one specimen, a child, Emily Chen, 8 Earth years old. The experiments were conducted in secret, against all Council protocols. But Val Shera's obsession with understanding human neural plasticity led her to ignore both regulations and basic morality. For 3 months, she studied the child's responses to various stimuli, including pain. What Val Shera didn't understand, what none of them had understood, was that humans had evolved as pack animals with a unique characteristic. Harm to their young triggered a response that transcended individual survival instincts. When the humans discovered what had happened, their response defied all logical analysis. "They're not following any known military doctrine," Zextal continued, displaying tactical readouts. "Their entire species has entered what their xenobiologists call protective fury. They're not fighting for territory or resources. They're not even fighting for revenge. They're fighting to ensure this never happens to another child, any child, ever again." The holographic display showed the devastation. Humanity had apparently been holding back during all previous conflicts. Their true military capabilities had remained hidden, masked behind a pretense of technological limitations. Now, unleashed by collective rage, they demonstrated terrifying new weapons and tactics. The Concordat's mighty defense fleet had been torn apart in hours. The Council's supposedly impregnable bureaucratic systems had been hacked and turned against themselves. Supply lines collapsed. Communication networks dissolved into chaos. And behind it all, human ships advanced with inexorable purpose. "But surely they can be reasoned with," asked the Volteri representative, their photonic form flickering with distress. "We've offered reparations, punished those responsible." "You don't understand," interrupted Commander Sarah Chen, Emily's mother, who had been granted speaking rights in this emergency session. She stood on the speaker's platform, her military uniform bearing the new insignia of Earth's combined fleet. "This isn't about punishment or reparation." Her voice carried across the chamber with cold clarity. "For millennia, you've seen our capacity for violence as a weakness. You called us primitive because we never fully eliminated our protective instincts. What you never understood is that humans don't just fight for survival. We fight for something more, to protect the innocent. All innocent lives, not just our own." She gestured to the tactical displays showing the advancing human fleets. "Those ships aren't crewed by professional soldiers. They're crewed by parents, teachers, doctors, artists, ordinary humans who dropped everything to ensure no other child would suffer like Emily did. They're not fighting because they hate what's in front of them. They're fighting because they love what they left behind." The silence in the chamber deepened as Sarah continued. "Every human out there sees their own child in Emily. Every human remembers being a vulnerable child themselves. You thought this would trigger a diplomatic crisis or perhaps a limited military response. Instead, you've awakened something far older and more powerful, the collective will of a species that evolved to protect its young at all costs." Zextal's crystalline form dimmed with realization. "What are your terms?" "The Galactic Concordat will be dissolved," Sarah stated. "A new coalition will be formed, with the protection of all sentient young as its founding principle. Every world that joins will participate in a new shared defense protocol. Every child of every species will be considered under human protection. She paused, her eyes hard. And if anyone ever again thinks to experiment on children, they won't face bureaucratic sanctions or diplomatic consequences. They'll face us. In the years that followed, the galaxy would learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their capacity for violence, but rather what they chose to do with it. The burned worlds were rebuilt, transformed into centers of learning and healing. The new Galactic Coalition, founded on human principles of protecting the vulnerable, ushered in an unprecedented era of peace. And in every coalition school, children of all species learned the story of Emily Chen and how her suffering led not to endless vengeance, but to a revolution in how the galaxy viewed its duty to protect the innocent. The humans, once dismissed as too primitive for their violent instincts, became known as the galaxy's guardians. They had burned worlds not out of hatred, but out of love. And in doing so, they had built something better from the ashes.